So for those who haven't been following this case, you've got two employees who went to Nigeria under the pretense of meeting with regulators. Since then, the situation has entirely changed. Can you give me the lay of the land, and then we can talk about the case, which seemed to kick off in truth on Friday?
Sure. Thanks, Mackenzie, for having me on and for allowing me to continue to spotlight this situation. So, exactly as you said, we had two employees at Binance go to Nigeria end of February, February 26th, at the invitation of the Nigerian government to testify, to work collaboratively about compliance issues, regulatory issues. At the conclusion of those meetings, they were told they were being detained, that there were serious concerns about Binance. And subsequently, they actually were charged. Binance was charged criminally, and these two employees were charged criminally for tax evasion and money laundering.
And right now, so one of those employees, Nadeem, escaped custody and is in Kenya. It's my understanding that there isn't an Interpol notice.
To be honest, I don't know the status of Nadeem. We haven't had contact with him since he's left.
Okay, so Tigran, he is in Nigeria. His case began, or his trial rather, began on Friday. Tell me the latest and where we are in that process.
Yeah, it's an absolutely horrific situation. So he's been detained for, I think this is day 88. He's in Kuje prison, notorious prison that's held terrorists. The trial, I'm not an expert on Nigerian sort of courts and the system, but it just seems to be in fits and starts. He was supposed to be produced for court yesterday. He failed to be produced. He was produced today for, I believe, the tax evasion case. We've just found out overnight, he's very ill. We suspect he may have malaria. He slumped in court today. So obviously this is hugely concerning to us, to his family. And we don't really see a clear roadmap to getting him back in the near term.
Well, and you were an AUSA in the Eastern District of New York. You worked for the DEA. You were the global head of financial crimes for Morgan Stanley. Clearly well versed in the American legal system. Do you have faith in a fair due process of law in Nigeria?
I just don't know the system well enough. What I do have faith in is if he is to get a fair trial, we have confidence that he'll be completely exonerated. I mean, Tigran is a man of ultimate and utmost integrity. He spent his entire adult life working to keep the financial system safe. He was sort of a legendary IRS criminal investigator, special agent, did some of the most important crypto cases, Silk Road, Welcome to Video. And he finds he finds it incredibly ironic that here he is being charged with the same crimes he spent his entire life trying to eradicate.
And so in terms of next steps, as you mentioned, there have been multiple delays, these fits and starts with respect to the trial process. We're almost 3 months in. You said 88-day mark, almost 3 months into all of this. And I guess my question is, what's happening in the background? Are there side conversations? Is there any sort of back channeling to try to resolve this outside of the court system?
Absolutely. So to be clear, I'm not even privy to everything that's going on with the U.S. government and the Nigerian government. Our interest remains, despite all that's happened, to working collaboratively with the Nigerian government and to getting them to the table. Our sort of view, and this has been our view with regulators and law enforcement around the world, I mean, we do have 18 registrations, is let us work through this collaboratively. If we've done something wrong in the past, and I'm not saying that we have or we haven't, but if we have, we want to come to the table and resolve it. And our message to the Nigerian government is you don't need to hold on to Tigran for us to have those conversations and to resolve. Our track record demonstrates we've done it in the past, and we will do it again.
What do the Nigerians want from Binance?
It's a really good question. To be very clear, as far as I'm aware, there's no specific quid pro quo. If you give us X, we'll let Tigran go. Believe me, if that conversation had taken place, we'd be in a very different place. As I said earlier, we've been charged, both the company and Tigran, with 2 charges. We haven't really seen all of the evidence, or really any evidence, to support those charges. But if there's evidence there, we'll work through it, and we will resolve it in a way that makes sense.
You mentioned U.S. involvement here, and Tigran, as you mentioned, worked for the IRS for a decade, is an American citizen, but it's also a complicated dynamic, I would imagine. Binance just settled with the U.S. government for $4.3 billion. They just, sentenced your former CEO to 4 months in prison and held him in custody in country between the point at which he surrendered himself to the court and the date of his sentencing. So how much help is the U.S. really when they've literally just done a very similar, or there's been a similar, legal process with your company?
Yeah, look, those optics certainly make cloudy the situation, but I have faith in the U.S. government to do the right thing here, whether it's because Tigran's a former agent. I actually don't even think that matters so much, although I have to say the law enforcement community, his former colleagues, current members have been fantastically vocal in sort of putting the spotlight on his situation. But I do think the U.S. government, at the end of the day, he's a U.S. citizen. We believe wrongly charged, really just a mid-level executive, an important one, but no decision-making power, not on the board, not an officer of the company, didn't set tax policy, didn't set any policies that the Nigerians could really legitimately claim are, his responsibility.
Well, it's an excellent point. And he, as you said, he's at a level where he wouldn't have made those policies or have the power to change them. Have you thought about swapping yourself out and to have Tigran go free and go in because you are in a position, you're his boss, like to be able to take his spot?
I I have not thought about that. Certainly, I'll take that back. Look, I don't think that whether it's me, the CEO, or anybody, given sort of what the Nigerian government has done over the last 88 days, I don't think we'd recommend that course of action, even were the Nigerians to be receptive to that.
It seems like this is all happening after the world witnessed this multi-billion-dollar settlement with the U.S. government and Binance's willingness to work with authorities to find a conclusion to settle these charges. Do you think that has anything to do with the motivation and the why now of Nigeria cracking down on your exchange?
It's a good point. And I can't speculate, but certainly I can go back. You can go back in history with traditional finance and sort of post-crisis. There was a sort of scenario where as soon as a big bank paid one fine, it seemed like every regulator had their hand out and thought that there was more money at the well, so to speak. So that certainly could contribute to the sort of feeling why now. I mean, what's interesting about it, and again, the irony here is that Tigran came to the company, as did I, in recent years to help be part of sort of what we call Binance 2.0, really sort of working with regulators, being as compliant in exchange as we can be, sort of setting the standard for compliance. I mean, he's part of that new chapter. And so again, to find himself arrested and charged, it's just really, it's horrible.
Anything else you wanted to say on his case or how you're dealing more broadly with addressing the charges around tax evasion, AML violations?
As I said before, look, we've got a track record. If we've done something wrong, show us the evidence. We'll work through it. We'll resolve it. And we want to move forward. As I said, despite everything that's happened, we want to work with the Nigerian government to resolve, but we need to have Tigran home. I mean, this sort of ill health that's just recently happened just complicates and makes the situation even more tragic. As I said, he's got small children at home. His wife misses them terribly. They miss him terribly. We got to do the right thing here and have Nigeria let him go home while we continue to work through these issues.